Chapter 8 Abraham. 4 men, 2 women. Then at 1520, on the 10th day of the first month of 882, Abraham watched his wife Abilene, in her last breath and her final raspy exhale, shudder all hope for the continuation of human life on Atavesta. It did not shock Abraham. He'd seen it coming, not with his eyes but in his bones, as one did after experiencing long life. Abraham's stoicism reacted with a single tear for the death of the species. For his wife, a partner in their political construct, he only felt a tickle of pity, a nagging ache at the back of his throat. She, like him, played her part as dutifully as she could. For that, and much more he didn't see important to dwell on, she had his respect and love. But theirs was not a romantic endeavor, and Abraham wasn't the kind to pretend it had been. In truth, all Abraham had left in the end was a deep, foreboding sense of wasted time. Tending to Abi in her final year had distracted him from the only endeavor worth pursuing: the Mortadel question. As long as the dream of Mortadel children survived, so did hope, and that hope was beginning to burn in his chest. Though Abraham's vision for the future was different than the other remaining men. They all still held out hope for human offspring. Abraham knew the Homo sapien species would die, and he did not mourn this death. In his 2.5 centuries of life, he had met very few humans worthy of passing on their blood. But Mortadels were the best humanity had to offer. Smarter, but not as long-living to become corrupt with power, Abraham saw Mortadels as the future of the planet. The proof stood right beside him in his Greta. "I must tell the council," Abraham said, patting Greta's hand, and knowing she would do everything necessary next with no direction. As Abraham approached the hearing room, a forestian scent greeted him. The combination of the forest's fresh, springy redwoods stung his nose when combined with something he hadn't smelled in a century or more. It was airy compared to the damp decay of these halls. Whether Efrem knew it or not, this was partially why he hated X so much. X smelled of the change coming. When Abraham entered, they all wore expected expressions. Barton, hopeless; Thaddeus, nervous; Efrem, enraged. They had all experienced this pain and felt very little. "Arrangements?" Thaddeus asked, skipping the condolences that had gone out of style around the time of 100 deaths per day a few decades prior. "Calin," Abraham answered quickly. The Mortadel son of a long line of morticians, tracing their craft back to Terrell Dua Alexandra Anu Linda. Caelin's father, Terrell's namesake, had been a believer in Abraham and his pro-Mortadel cause. In repayment to his early ally, Abraham bolstered Terrell's children whenever possible, even long after Terrell's death a century ago. Many things about Abraham were faltering, but his memory and loyalty were well intact. "In terms of announcing to the world," Abraham continued, knowing this would be the next point of discussion, "until we handle the Forestians, we say nothing. They'll use her death as a sign from Celeste." Abraham did not know exactly who had seeded Celeste into the forest culture, but seeing the way the religion had morphed into a weapon wielded against them, it had clearly been a tactical error. "The fair governs our timeline," Thaddeus warned. "Abi's absence there cannot be easily explained." He was right. As the patron of the Alsabag, Abi should oversee the matching ceremony, ratifying the matches as equitable for the vulnerable South Sands tribes. "Settling the forest should be swift," said Efrem with his usual arrogance. Efrem's impatience benefited from the rest's fatigue. "Diplomacy can be time-consuming," Thaddeus said calmly. "Slowly. Exactly. Good thing we're beyond diplomacy," Efrem raged. Treaty 107, Article 1, reads, "The land and people existing within 300,000 kilometers of 51°9, 48.526, 51.66 EE shall never be permitted to join together as a single entity." Efrem rattled off the details like a pompous child, showing off his studies to peers. "With shared government, social services, banking, education, or infrastructure. Our leniency ends now." "You'd have us go threaten them?" Thaddeus asked. "Remind them of their commitments, yes." "For what terms do we ask?" Barton asked. "They dissolve the unification of at least 2 territories, per 107, Efrem demanded. "And if they don't comply?" Barton asked. "They will," Efrem assured. "But if they don't," Thaddeus pushed, We will punish them until they obey. The precedent is clear. They had all only ever read of war, never declared it. Thaddeus, Barton, and Abraham had staved off Efrem's desire for a fight, the revenge he wanted to take on the planet itself, for half a century. But in this moment, Abraham saw Thaddeus begin to weaken. Abby's death had finalized their hand. If Thaddeus validated Efrem's sentiment, Barton would fall next. Abraham watched them, all of them, and saw what the world would see: men grasping at control with force. It would only serve to rally more supporters to the forest. The Isle had weapons, but they couldn't take on the world. "I'll go," Abraham said. The words were quiet, but they fell like a gavel. "You?" Efrem asked, surprised. "I thought you no longer traveled." "I don't," Abraham cut in, "but I must. The forest must remember who we are. X will accompany me to the forest to explore the Mortadel rumor." "Ah, we have not yet updated you," Efrem said with a laugh. Abraham took in the information of Isabel's claim and the men's skepticism. "A ploy to buy time," Efrem concluded. "Perhaps," said Abraham. "What's 2 more weeks after waiting 3 years?" Barton asked. "As long as none of my morts are part of her testing," Efrem said. It was as close to agreement as they'd get. The council voted unanimously to grant Isabel her 2-week reprieve to prove her manipulation of Mortadel DNA could in fact produce a Mortadel child, and in the meantime, he and X would head back to the forest to find alternative solutions.